Professor Kowalczyk, thanks for this exclusive interview. Very first question is, as the BRI approaches its 10th anniversary, how would you rate it? How would you see its success?
I think that it has contributed significantly over the last 10 years to acceleration of economic growth in developing countries, especially some countries in Africa, South Asia, and Middle East. To a lesser degree, in my part of the world, there were some problems in the meantime. We did have, first of all, COVID, which made the cooperation much more difficult, starting from traveling. Now we have almost a year and a half this unfortunate conflict in Ukraine. But there was also a little bit of, not enough, I would say, coordination between European Commission and the Chinese governments. So I'm saying since several years that we have to give more attention to such a cooperation between infrastructure project co-financed by the European Union and Belt and Road investment co-financed by lending from China with the participation of China's companies and so on. But having said so, in general, the evaluation is positive. We have a little bit better points of infrastructure, a bridge here, a harbor over there, road or piece of railroad in another country. And I'm an economist. Of course, it has created job opportunities. But going back to the global evaluation, it is positive. I see it as an instrument of getting more robust economic growth in catching up countries, poorer countries.
About 2 weeks ago in Warsaw, by attending the seminar between the Chinese and the Polish intellectuals and the media representatives, you mentioned your disappointment towards BRI's progress in Poland in particular, and you said bluntly that it is mostly because of the Polish government or probably the European side. So what are these issues in particular, in your opinion?
Well, Polish government is rather sympathetic towards expansion, continuation of the economic cooperation with China, yet there are some problems. Now, one big problem is this war, this conflict in Ukraine. If you are taking a look on the map, Russia and Ukraine is just between China and Poland. And that is causing some logistical problems with transport of goods from China to Poland. And one must see Poland as the gate to European Union. I think that also maybe some problems are an indirect result. We are talking economics, but there is politics. And Poland is a very important member of NATO, which by all means is led by the United States with the very big, strong and influential position of United Kingdom. And these two very important countries in the geopolitical game, US and UK, are somehow reluctant recently to widen and deeper economic cooperation with China. You may see a lot of, I may say, xenophobia, if not anti-Chinism in American and British approach. Again, mostly I think for non-economic political reasons, but also for economic one. These countries, which are very much advanced, they seem to be somehow afraid, scared of China's rise, especially in critical technologies. There is the recently published report by Australian Institute for Policy Research about 44 most important technologies in the contemporary world, and out of these 44, in as many as 37 cases, China is number 1, US is number 7. Or alternatively, only in 7 cases, US is number 1 and China is number 2. We are somehow a minor player in this game. I think that Poland, our government, but first of all, our business and our people. We are very much in favor of deepening and extending our cooperation with China. The question is, are we doing everything what is possible under the given circumstances? Because not everything depends on us. We are part of globalization, but as I'm pointing in my papers, and I pointing to this point, to this aspect also during my keynote speech at the conference hosted here in China recently by China Academy of Social Sciences, globalization is an irreversible process. And I don't see any other country which has gained so much from globalization over the last generation as China. And I think I may say that I can't see any other country in East Central Europe which has get from globalization as much as we have done in Poland. So now the question is, on the Chinese side, how to take advantage of ongoing globalization on the behalf of China's people, China's economy. Another question is how to take advantage of irreversible globalization, of which indispensable part is our relation with China on the behalf of our society, our national economy. So I'm rather positive, but still I'm aware that much more would be accomplished if there would be less of sometimes emotionally driven politics and much more of economic rationality driven economic concern. I see a good future for these relations.
During our seminar in Warsaw 2 weeks ago, Chinese Premier Li Qiang was actually visiting Germany. So you observed in the seminar by mentioning that the number of Chinese companies in Poland is actually dwarfed by the number of Chinese companies in Germany. This is like about 80 plus companies versus more than 2,000 companies. What are the specifics can Chinese and the Polish business people can do to make it a two-way street?
Comparing Poland and Germany, why there is such an imbalance? Yes. Well, this is the number of the companies, but there are some huge companies and there are some small companies. Second point is German economy is 4 times bigger than the Polish economy. In certain technologies, German companies are more advanced, and for that reason, they have easier access to Chinese market because China is interested more in dealing with more advanced technologically companies. So it's natural that our engagement is relatively not as big as in case of Germany. The question is, what is the dynamic? Export to China is growing faster than on average. Polish export overseas, direct investment, still not as big as I hope they will be in the future. They are growing above the average. Recently, again, there was the problem, turbulence because of COVID. But COVID is almost gone. So I think that the curve will look like this, and now it will look like that. I'm taking a look for bilateral cooperation, international or global cooperation from the viewpoint is a factor of job creation behind. Sometimes that is the question mark, because if you trade high-tech technologies, artificial intelligence technology or whatever, digitalization, something, when it is brought to Poland or to other country, can push our competitiveness and our labor productivity. It is decreasing the jobs. But in the longer run, it works on the behalf of sustaining economic growth.
The China Center for International Economic Exchange had pointed out that the failure of a few high-profile projects, such as the A2 highway in Poland, this kind of projects contributed to some negative perception of the BRI in Poland. What's your take on that? How can we better inform the public of this kind of overall positive story of the BRI?
Nothing is perfect. Failure from time to time happens. As the proverb goes, only the one who is doing nothing is not committing mistakes. What we have to do? Well, we have to draw the proper lessons from the true causes of this failure. And we have to focus attention, as far as the public debate is concerned, on positive examples. And there is always the question, why? Public attitude, public perception is very much the result of public media narrative. As the other saying goes, good news is not the news. Only bad news is the news. And for that reason, that was the news, because it was a failure. So you may hear much more about this one example of failure within the Belt and Road Initiative project. And you cannot hear that much, for instance, that recently China has erased entirely extreme poverty. Because this is the good news. There is certain disappointment, and not without justification. Much more was expected. But sometimes it is still the problem that it is process of learning by doing. It is not that easy for us in Hungary or Czech Republic, Slovakia or Slovenia, Bulgaria or Romania, Poland. It is not that easy to do business with China as it is, for instance, with Germany or France, Italy or UK or United States. Because of difference of the systems, for instance, at my university, Kazminski University, we teach a special course program, China's Business, it is called. How to make business with Chinese characteristics. It is not only the question of language. This is the problem of lack of compatibility of I would say, business language or law language. And that is not an excuse, that is an explanation why sometimes there is not a firework success as it was expected. Because one more time, the only one who is never failing is the one who is doing nothing.
Maybe there is this China model where now all China's path to modernization can be shared worldwide.
Countries may learn from China experience. There is no doubt about that there is uncomparable success in China over the last 40 years. It's a civilization leap forward. The question is, what country like India or Brazil, Philippines or Congo, or if you wish, Mexico or Nigeria, can learn from this experience? We cannot learn a lot. I mean, we say in Eastern Europe or in the European Union or in the United States. But other countries, they can learn a lot, but it's a risky business. Because China's success is caused by a unique combination of two powers. The power of invisible hand of market and the power of visible hand of government. And somebody says, yeah, we will do the same. We'll combine our power of the government, bureaucracy, party, leadership with power of market. Depends what quality. I know how they will do so. Because you have very powerful government. I wouldn't say that Saudi Arabia government is weaker than Chinese government. Maybe it's even more strong. And somehow they are not successful. Why? Well, it's not only the question of power of market and power of government to be combined in a proper way. It is also that it must be accompanied by meritocracy, by technocracy. Then it may work. What is the remaining ingredient of this recipe? It's a culture. There is something like business culture, which has an influence upon the working of the system, of the whole system. So I'm referring to this Chinese system. I call it Chinism in English language to stress that it's something very unique, something very specified. So if I hear a small country that we will go Chinese way, I say, well, try to get as much from Chinese model as is compatible with your local culture, but also put it in the context. The same question you answer somehow differently in a Muslim country than you do in the Protestant country or Catholic country or a secular country. You are answered how to fight inflation differently in a country where it is basically imported inflation and differently when it is basically domestic cost inflation. So my new pragmatism, you may call it in China with Chinese characteristics, is very much against this neoliberal approach, one size fits all. You have your size. Your costume must be fitting your size, not the size of each and every other girl and lady, because they may have different size. Each size is beautiful, but there are different sizes. So this is much more complex as far as economics and politics are concerned.